Hey guys, it's James with the Pot Smashers crew here, and we're back to Mega Man 2 walkthrough. So I'm just going to throw up a quick image on the screen. This is the code to get to the start of the Wily Castle stages. It'll actually give you 4 E-Tanks instead of 2. Not a big deal since we'll be passing up on a couple of E-Tanks anyway, so we'd be at max regardless. The first thing you'll know about the second half of this game in the Wily Castle stages is that our strategy changes significantly with regards to weapon power. You need to start managing it very carefully. Unlike the first half, where your weapon power is refilled to full after every boss, you don't receive that same benefit. So you got to manage it very carefully. There's going to be a particular couple of weapons that we prioritize filling up, metal and crash specifically. But in general, just make sure that you're always topping it up. Now I use 3 for this next section, but just a quick note, you can use 1 if you do want to spawn it. Stay a little bit to the left and do a little hop jump to spawn. I'm skipping the one man. Again, I'll go over that when we get to it. Why? For the Sniper Joe areas here, you can use Metal Man at an angle from the ladders. But again, in the interest of preserving weapon power, I actually recommend that you use Buster. You can run all the way to the right here, or you can just go back down the ladder and wait. I'm gonna fill up my 3 to almost maximum with this. Back to metal, and up we go. So this has a long hallway, and like I said, you can actually kill him with just plain Buster if you just go to the top. And every time he shoots a bullet at you, just hop your way back down that ladder until he puts his guard back up, or you kill him. One of my favorite screens in the whole game, this is actually the only stealth section of Mega Man where patience will just pay off. You actually can get to the top of that ladder and jump him without taking damage, but why bother? Another note about ladders, I should have mentioned this earlier. If you change weapons on a ladder, make sure that you hold up when you unpause, because you actually start falling. That's why I switched to 1 on this screen instead of this one. The other note here is don't climb to the top and spawn your 1. You want to spawn it off of the ladder so it starts as low as possible. And you want to make sure that when you spawn the left one, you are all the way to the left side of the platform. One of my favorite sections, nothing feels more epic than climbing the outside of a giant castle with enemies chasing you that can't hurt you. A lot of people at this point switch to Heatman and get a full charge going. I'm actually just going to switch to Quickman since that's the boss's weakness and what we're going to use. I find it very hard to hold the charge and do this difficult jumping section. In particular, this little hop always kills me. It's combined with what you'll see is a screen pan start to the right. But so long as you keep hopping, and if you do stop, make sure you get going a little bit before you jump again. And here we go. So the first thing you want to do is hop to the top like I just did there. If you get hit now, you're going to fall back onto the center block, which is fine. Just like that. Just make sure that you immediately jump back up there in case you're going to take more damage. Get knocked down, jump back up, and should make short work of them. So that's the end of the first castle stage. Should be still pretty full on weapon power up. The next stage has the same music, which is great because again, I think it's the best in the game. We're going to see this little line. Boop. Now, this is great game design. You'll see that they immediately give us a weapon power to be like, do you want to check your weapon powers? As it's the first stage where you won't start with full. You can also farm the guys in this very first area, these little hopper airplane or helicopter dudes. I'm not that strapped for items. One important thing I will mention here though is after you fill up on this last weapon power up, what you're going to want to do is kill the guy and immediately spawn a 2 rocket. Now when you jump on the 2 rocket, make sure you actually go all the way to the right because you want to despawn that helicopter guy or else he's going to jump to you, knock you off your rocket and onto the spikes. Also, don't be tempted to jump at this very first ladder, jump at the second one. There's one of those extra E-Tanks, like I said, that we won't be needing, but if we had been down some, that'd be great. Jump the 1 man because we don't want extra lives at this point. I think 2 might be the only empty one. It is, so I'm just going to fill up my 2 entirely. or as entirely as I can. Lots of people like to try and use metal on these guys. I actually find plain Buster is just fine. Just wait for him to start shooting up like that. Kill him. You could use a Crash Bomber here to get another E-Tank, or if you are struggling with lives, I guess you could get that one. I don't recommend it. Hold right so you don't hit the spikes as you fall. And now we're into a great farming section. So in this section, Woodman, it's just like the start actually of Metal Man stage. Unfortunately, we didn't have Wood Shield at the time. I'm just going to let that one man despawn. But essentially, when something's about to hit you, you want to turn on Woodman and then shoot it forward so that it kills a whole bunch of those drills. Fill up every power you can except Woodman's so that you can just finish out the section with Woodman's. It doesn't matter if you have Woodman totally full because he's only good for one boss at the very end, the Robot Master Airman. And we don't need him for any of the upcoming Wily Castle levels. One other quick note is the floor here is a little bit slippery. Doesn't make a big difference here, but after we use this 3 and get to the top, these things do quite a bit of damage, and there's 2 very close together. So you want to make sure you stop just a hint before so that you slide into the extra section. I didn't do a very good job there. You'll see how much damage I did take, so try to avoid that if at all possible. The good news is there's a power up right here in the top right-hand side. At this point, you might be tempted to just 2 across to it. Lots of people do. I actually prefer to jump down and use 1. I think it uses slightly less, which is kind of important. Like I said, we're very conscious of how much weapon power we're using. And we're at the boss. So this boss's technical weakness is Bubble Lead, but we're going to use metal. The pattern's going to be top, middle, bottom. And then the left-hand side and the right-hand side. And then we're going to go middle, and then off to the top and the side. And if you just watch out for that left-hand side, we're almost done. And again, don't be afraid to use an E-Tank. He does do quite a bit of damage if he hits you a few times. But I would say probably the easiest of the Wily Castle bosses. So 2 levels down already. We're halfway to our Robot Masters. So ominous. Back on the ground level of the castle. Now you technically want to jump off to the right if you want to get any of these things. I jump off to the left, no big deal. I do not recommend getting that weapon power up on the left-hand side. It will use as much Crash Bomber to get as it will fill up, and we need Crash Bomber to be at maximum for a later Wily Castle stage. Jump off to the right here. Make sure you switch to whatever you're low on. I know we said we weren't using wood at the end, so I'm going to fill up metal. And then I'm going to swap to 3, and I'm going to fill that up. You can totally ignore this guy in the bottom right. I don't know why he's there. This water section is fairly straightforward. Just basically hold all the way right and jump as high as you can for most of it. Those fish will jump out. They don't really do anything. A couple little hops. This spike at the top will kill you. I've died to it when I was trying to record this and had to start from scratch. Quick note here. So the spikes are going to move to the left in the next screen. So we want to be as far to the left-hand side as we can. And you don't actually need to move back to the right because you can just fall straight and it'll open up a little bit at the end. Here, just be very careful. Take your time. Inch off those edges. Stay right. If you are on the left-hand side of the screen transition, there's still plenty of time to get over. For these guys, you can Metal Man them. I'm actually going to use plain Buster, though. And to not get hit by them, if you jump just as they come onto the screen, okay, not like that, but if you jump just as they come onto the screen like this guy, you'll see that you can actually dodge the first bullet. Perfect. And we're at the Dozer boss. So this is the second Wily Castle boss that is actually weak to Quickman. He's pretty straightforward. You want to get on the front of his tank here as fast as you can and just shoot him in the face. If you touch his left-hand fist, it does hurt you, though not too significantly. The pellets don't do much damage. and you'll see that he occasionally raises his fist and shoots stuff out if you're taking your time beating him. But probably won't need to burn an E-Tank on him. I would actually recommend maybe even skipping the E-Tank and just taking a death if you have a rough first run of it. With that, we're done the third Wily Castle stage, and we're on to the fourth before the Robot Masters at the skull there. This is arguably the hardest stage in the entire game. We get some weapon fill-ups here. I'm going to fill up wood just because it's so empty. But you're going to want to use bubble lead in this stage, as there are invisible sections to it, as you'll see later. And bubble lead follows the contours of what actually exists. So it'll tell you where the gaps are because it traces them. That man actually gives us the first introduction to it. So you'll see if I switch here, I'm going to run forward and that guy's going to spawn, and you're going to see where the hole is that I can fall down. Right, so if I just step off to the left here, I'm just going to make sure I fill up my quick man. Yeah, so you could either 3 up there if you want to go get that extra man, but in general, you're going to use bubble throughout the level just to make sure that you know where the gaps are. So there's 2 gaps in this section. You'll see the first one's right here. Jump it. And there's the second one, so you can just jump it. Obviously, there's no gaps in this section, otherwise how would you get through it? You can't spawn anything or any rockets. But up here on the spikes, sure enough, there's a gap that'll kill you if you fall down it. This might also seem very straightforward, but as you can guess, spawn bubble. Yep, there's a hole. There's another hole down there. I'll actually get the weapon power up. That's more useful than the E-Tank to me right now. Top up my metal. Now we've got a long hallway. It's pretty tough. Got to build anticipation for the next section. So here you might be tempted to ride it all the way around, but if you actually just jump off, look at that. You've skipped the whole section. The other thing I'll note is this is the spot where you would farm if you die on the boss and you need more Crash Bomber. You just wait for the tellies to spawn in that previous screen and hope that they drop weapon power-ups fairly regularly, although their drop rate does not seem conducive to farming whatsoever. It's the only really reliable farming spot. On this one, you want to stay a little bit higher up on the ladder where I am instead of all the way down to the bottom. That's going to draw that left-hand telly up to put him in range of Metal Blade if he gets too close. It's probably not going to be a problem since we're just going to drop down here. You can also spawn a rocket and just hop over and then wait for the platform, but I think that's actually harder than just riding it around. Oh, get all 3 with 1. Hop down here. The strategy on this one is once we get to that little purple platform, you would have to time it so that you jumped to the platform and then over. But if you have 2, you can just spawn a little rocket and cheat. Now all that stands in our way is really some Sniper Joes. I'm going to switch to air. Note that whenever you're fighting these guys, you definitely want to get hit by their bullets more than you want to get hit by getting jumped on with their mech. It does significantly more damage, I believe. If you have a fully charged heat, you can actually take this guy out without taking damage, but I don't generally consider it worth it. I want my full heat to fight Dr. Wily. Got to take on another mech guy. You could just jump these guys and go to the other side, but I kind of like killing them. And one more Sniper Joe, which should be fairly easy. We got some jumping room on this one. And now we're at the hardest boss in the game. So we've very carefully kept full Crash Bomber. The first thing you'll notice when you step into this room is there are 5 Crash Bomber walls. We do not have enough Crash Bomber to break all of those. The only thing that can damage the actual wall installations is Crash Bomber. There are a couple ways to do it in less than 7 shots. For example, in the upper left, you can actually split the difference and get a wall and kill one of them. But for simplicity's sake, I'm going to do it the old-fashioned way. We're just going to kill this very first one. Can't do too much about taking that damage. We're going to drop back down. use our 1 to get back up onto that platform, and shoot to our left. So one thing I will note about this is if you're going to die, be sure to use an E-Tank. It's critically important that you don't need to restart this, because if you do, the walls will respawn and you will not have enough Crash Bomber to actually complete it without farming those tellies. So we're going to take out this last one in the bottom right. Hopefully jump his bullet. Yep. 3 will get us out of this little pit that we're in. And... oh, pause just in time so as not to get hit. You'll note that as I unpause, that bullet is actually inside me. The reason it didn't kill me is because you have some invincibility frames whenever you switch weapons. So every time you hit the pause menu, you have some invincibility. That can be widely abused throughout this game. I choose not to do it. It's obviously kind of cheap and takes away from some of the difficulty. Otherwise, why aren't you just playing on normal if you're going to use exploits like that? But it is something that if you're in a pinch, you're out of E-Tanks, you don't want to restart, don't want to see a game over, great. We're now back to the Robot Masters, where we have to refight all of them. You can do this strategically in like an order so that some of the harder ones are followed up by easier ones to keep your health at full. But it's not that big of a deal. You're probably pretty good at their patterns if you made it this far. I also said when we originally did Heatman that you can't dodge that first damage. Obviously, I just demonstrated that you can. Just ignore me. Yay! So the other Robot Masters we've kind of done most of, but I will show you Airman again, just because now that we have Wood Shield, you can see how much damage it does to him. We just used Mega Buster because we started with him to get that 2 rocket. Jump this. So when he comes here, you just want to stay on the left and you just want to spam Wood Shield. I'm actually not going to spam Wood Shield in this case. I'm going to wait for him to hit me and then run back in on him and kill him, because I don't want to miss picking up the health power-up that spawned, and if it's right on the warp, you might warp out. So for these next few bosses, you've seen them all. You know the strategies. I have slightly better execution on Woodman here. Bubbleman didn't get any harder. If anything, it got easier because there's no spikes. Quickman, same thing. I just use plain Buster on him for a little while until I can Flashman him down. You don't need the Flashman ability for anything. Crashman, we already know Airman's his weakness, and he takes a whole crap ton of damage from it. Which brings us to Metal Man. So, Metal Man's weakness is actually metal, which is hilarious. It also only takes 2 hits to kill him. Now that's important because we actually do need metal for the second stage of Wily, as you'll see coming up. The last and certainly not least Robot Master, actually kind of least, he's kind of fat and little, is Flashman. I just wanted to note that in the previous video I said I use Bubble to kill him. That's not his official weakness. I did put some text on screen, but I know some people only watch the audio version of this. So definitely use metal if you're struggling with him. And on to Dr. Wily. Now we're going to switch to heat for his first stage. 2 full power heat shots will take out his, I guess, outer shell. Just hop these little items. If you have to get hit by the little white orb instead of the front of the machine. And swap to metal, and we're just going to shoot up and diagonally at him. His weakness is technically Crash Bomber, but if you've done things right, you're flush out a Crash Bomber, so metal is a happy substitution. And you'll see it's pretty flexible. If you are looking to dodge those white bullets there, I'm just going to burn an E-Tank really quick. But if you are looking to dodge those white bullets, don't try and jump them. It's actually the spacing on the ground. You have to stand so that they bounce directly over you. And we're pretty much there. So Wily does briefly escape. You'll note that the floor falls away and we're now falling into a huge pit for his underground secret lair in preparation of the big reveal. So here, just make sure you stay all the way to the right. That's going to come in handy because you want to avoid all of these dripping magma. If you just stay to the right and you jump every time you come across a little area, you'll be fine. You won't get hit by anything. If you do get hit, though, it does a lot of damage. You should still have a couple E-Tanks left unless you had trouble with the Wily stage. And here we are. The end of the game. Boom. He's an alien. Now, at this point, if you played this originally without a guide, you would try every weapon and realize that almost none of them hurt him. And by almost, I mean all of them don't hurt him except for Bubble Lead. So this is why we've been avoiding getting lives throughout the game. If he kills you and you don't have enough Bubble Lead to kill him, you're going to need to get a full game over to get your weapon powers restocked in order to defeat him. That sucks if you have 8 lives. That means you got to go kill yourself on that magma 8 times. You don't really want to do that. I think you've got a feel for the pattern that I'm using here, so I'm just going to fast forward through this section. Enjoy the pretty backgrounds. I'm not sure how many hits it takes, but it's quite a few. It only does 1 tick of damage every time you hit him, as you can see in the top left there. But the good news is he is the final boss. So, boom! Dr. Wily down. We killed an alien. Oh, wait. It's just him and one of his magical machines making a horrible sound. So hopefully you've completed Megaman 2 with these tips and tricks. If I missed anything or you have any helpful hints of your own, please do feel free to leave those in the comments. If you did like the video, don't forget to click that little like button below. Really do appreciate it when you like our videos. And of course, if you're not already a regular subscriber, we would love to see you come back. So click that subscribe button if you're so inclined. Thanks for tuning in. You guys rock. Have a wonderful day. Bye.